My name is Father Tom Voorhees, and I am a priest for the Diocese of Lafayette. Almost 2,000 years ago, Jesus called the apostles to drop their nets and to follow him. Today, Jesus is still calling young men to the Catholic priesthood. If you are attracted to a life of service to God and neighbor, maybe God is calling you. If so, please contact your local Catholic priest in the Diocese of Lafayette.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this edition of Catholics Today. I'm Blue Rolfus, Director of Communications for the Diocese of Lafayette. We're so glad you stopped by to join us. It's a very exciting day for us today in the Office of Communications because we're having the opportunity to sit down with our brand new priests in the Diocese of Lafayette. Now, by the time you watch this, they will already have been ordained, but they are still deacons as we are recording this interview, so we'll refer to them that way during the interview. Welcome to Deacon Stephen Pelessier, Deacon Kyle White, and Deacon Corey Laverne. So glad to have all of you here. And we've asked their mentor and guide, spiritual guide, so to speak, Father Kevin Bordelon, to join us. He is Director of Seminarians for the Diocese of Lafayette. Thank you all for being here. We're very excited to talk to you, and our entire diocese is so joyful about your upcoming ordinations. Deacon Pelessier, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up, and when did you first begin to discern a call to the priesthood?
Thank you, Blue. I grew up in Lafayette, parishioner at St. Mary, Mother of the Church on Doucet Road. I went to public school my entire life, and it wasn't until I was 18 years old that I first thought about becoming a priest. But up until that time, I was raised cradle Catholic, brought to church every Sunday, prayed before meals, CCD, the regular Catholic lifestyle.
Yep, sounds very familiar, definitely. Deacon White, how about you? Where did you grow up, and when did you first begin to discern a call?
I am also from the Diocese of Lafayette, born and raised, went to Catholic school, St. Leo and Turlings. But to be honest, I really started to first seriously consider the call and to listen and to respond during my time at UL. I was there for 3 years. My time with the Raging Cajun Catholics was life-changing.
Yes, we've heard that from a lot of the incoming priests who have come through the Raging Cajun Catholics about the wonderful environment on the campus there. Deacon Laverne, how about you?
I grew up in DeQuincy, Louisiana.
Oh.
If you look at Calcasieu Parish, it's a little box right on top. So the Diocese of Lake Charles.
Yes.
Born and raised there with my two sisters, an older and younger, so I'm the middle child. And my mother and father, strong Catholic family. But when I was 10 years old, I would say, is first when I got the call, because as they were bringing up the collection, they gave the baskets of money to the priest, and I thought I'd be interested in that. And as I got older, of course, that transformed.
Yeah.
But really, there were just really strong Catholic women in my church who would always approach my parents, and because I was a faithful altar server and I shadowed the priest. So I remember her name was Miss Bertha. She'd say, "Oh, you're going to be a priest one day." And I'd say, "Okay."
That's awesome.
She got the last laugh.
That is awesome. That's great to hear. And it's nice to hear that Catholic women had such a strong influence on your decision to discern a call to the priesthood. Father Bordelon, this has got to be really an amazing time for you right now. You've guided these young men through formation, and now they're about to take the final step to become a brother priest to you. What's in your heart as this is happening?
I do think it's providence. It is the centennial year, and so in addition to the 3 deacons here, we have 4 other guys being ordained priests, so 7 new priests, the perfect number for the centennial year, so we're so grateful for that. And I'm completing now actually 7 years working in the office, and so all of these seminarians have been, during my tenure, and so I think back to our initial meetings and kind of seeing them go from college seminary to to the next level and being part of that, and all the evaluations with the faculty, and maybe bumps along the way, and kind of helping keeping the guys focused and bring him to this point. So just a lot of gratitude, really, for this moment. And I was also thinking too, there's something unique about the priesthood in that whenever new priests are ordained, in a certain sense, it affects my priesthood too. It's rejuvenating, and it changes the dynamic of our presbyterate and even our individual priesthood. So just a lot of gratitude.
And of course, this is a very deeply profound spiritual moment for all of you, but I would be amiss if I did not share their nickname with our viewers today. Father Kevin, why don't you tell us what they're known as?
I think there may be some word around or some appellation, Kevin 7. I'll take it. That's good. That works for me.
Love it. I think it's perfect. And in this centennial year, to carry the name, the Kevin 7, it's absolutely wonderful.
It's
All right.
official.
It's official. It's out there now. Deacon White, let's start with you on our next question. What role did your family play in your discernment process? I think you might have touched on it in the answer to the first question, but was your family a source of support for you as you went through the process?
Yeah, absolutely. They certainly were. I came from a very loving family on both sides, and I've always had a lot of support throughout my life. The idea of priesthood particularly was scary for them at first. And in fact, my mom really saw it from the beginning when I was young, way before I did. And she was a little nervous about it, but she came around and even embraced it again before I even considered it. She was my biggest fan from day one. Another influential person in my life was my grandmother, who really has just besides my mom, has been my biggest fan in my vocation, has been praying for me just every day, and is so proud for this moment. But really, my entire family. I'll say something interesting. My dad, at first, he was not Catholic, and he was not supportive at first. That was a very difficult thing for him to understand. Why would you want to be a priest and not get married and have children? But beautifully, in God's providence, through my time in seminary, he has come full circle. He's actually, 2 years ago, he became Catholic on the Easter Vigil. And he's fully supportive and excited about my vocation, and I couldn't be happier to have his support, and my entire family as well. So.
That's wonderful to hear. We're glad to have him as one of us, definitely. Deacon Corey, what about you? How about your family? I have to tell you, I'm from Lake Charles, and I've visited DeQuincy many times. It's a wonderful community, so glad to hear that you're a DeQuincy boy.
Home of the Railroad Festival.
Yeah. Exactly. What role did your family play in your formation?
Well, strong Catholic family. I mean, my dad's family is from Eunice. My mom's family is from Gaydon. So once again, that strong, that Cajun Catholic culture. I mean, it's in our blood, you know. So they were always praying. So even from as far back as I remember, my great-grandparents, they're always praying for a priest in the family. The funny thing is that I'm the only son of an only son of an only son. And so, there was just that tension, it's oh, well, if I become a priest, don't have children. So our family name kind of, dies there. So there was had to overcome that. But I mean, from the beginning, my father was really gung-ho about it. But my mother, she was supportive, but kind of tentative. And because I even remember in high school when I was graduating, my counselor, what do you want to do for your career? She wasn't Catholic, but I went in there and says, well, I want to be a priest. And she says, well, I'm not really quite sure what to do about that, but I'll do some research. But we just talked about it. My mom decided, I really just want to make sure that you know what you're doing and you really want to do this. And so I went to McNeese, had did 2 years there. But after changing my majors 5 times, I finally went to my mother and said, listen, I tried this, can I go to seminary? She finally said yes. So even with that, I went for 3 years, discerned for 3 years, had moved to Lafayette and come back. Through that process, we've all grown in understanding this vocation to the priesthood. Because even when we first come into the priesthood, the reasons why, what brings us there is God, but we understand the reality of why we want to do that. And, for us, it's, because we want to become saints and we want to help others on this journey towards sainthood. And so my mother, tells me, it was at a parents' retreat that she, finally was able to embrace this call because of the, the importance. And so, especially for all mothers, my mother, could be a model for that of, the mothers of young men discerning the priesthood. They are the, the greatest source of prayer for these young men because, we learn how to be nurturing and loving from our mothers, and in a way we learn how to pray from her. And so that was really a big moment for our family, for her to be able to embrace this and to move on and say, okay, this is happening. And so it's just been it's brought us all closer together as a family and deeper in our own faith. So it's been a multifaceted vocation.
It's wonderful to hear, wonderful to hear. Now, Deacon Palacio, you're going to have an interesting perspective on this. You've got a predecessor, so to speak, in terms of your family support. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. So, so said alleged predecessor is my older brother, Father Rene Pelletier, parochial vicar at Our Lady of Wisdom. And I remember the first time that I thought about being a priest. I mean, it was all very new to me, the whole idea of, being a priest, and I felt like God was calling me, but I never told anyone before. And he was still not in the seminary, but had previously discerned. So I remember it was an afternoon, we were working in our shed, doing some stuff, and I remember like, hey, I think I'm thinking about being a priest. And I remember him shaking his head, and he said, think some more. And so that was my first interaction, with that. So it wasn't all, all a cakewalk.
Yes, exactly.
Because whenever I was thinking about it, he was wrestling with it. Whenever he had accepted it, I was wrestling with it, So it was sort of a unique way in which God worked in our family. So as in regards to my parents, though, I think that they handled it in a very healthy way because at least we had never been told by our parents about the option of priesthood growing up. Not that they were opposed to it. And even whenever we had entered, it was sort of like, okay, we accept this. We don't understand. My dad was like, I didn't tell them about this. This wasn't my idea, but if that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. If God's calling them to this. And then my mom, was very silent but supportive, and had revealed to me some years ago that she had originally struggled with it for obvious reasons, because we're one of three boys. I'm one of three boys, and two of those now can't give her grandkids. So, but now she's come around full circle and, would even love for the third to be a priest if that was God's will for him. I think I was very blessed with a supportive family with healthy boundaries.
Definitely. And your brother's advice turned out to be pretty good in the long run.
Yeah, I did think about it. Thought about it for some time now.
We should get all of our mothers to have coffee.
Exactly.
I think they already have.
Or they will in the very near future. Deacon Corey, let's start with you on this one. Where did you attend seminary, and what have you enjoyed most about your years in seminary and during your time of formation?
Of course. So I began at St. Joseph Seminary College in Covington, Louisiana, and then after graduating from there and taking some time, I was accepted back to go to Notre Dame Seminary in New Orleans. I just think the biggest thing for being educated at those seminaries is the proximity to home. Just for me and my family, family and getting together and having good times. Like at Thanksgiving, it's not just our close family, but our extended family that comes together. So just being able to have that opportunity that, if things happen, we can be present back in the diocese or present at home to be with the family. And on top of, receiving an excellent formation education at Notre Dame Seminary. So it was just really for me, just loving to be home and loving to be in the area. I've eaten the good Cajun food.
Yes.
That was the biggest benefits for me. So, but I'm very thankful for formation at Notre Dame Seminary. Because just the fraternity that you experience there, and you just know that you're being educated with the people that are going to be in your area. So Lake Charles, Lafayette, Baton Rouge. I have good priest friends from Baton Rouge now because of our time spent together there. So I think that's the greatest benefit there is to being educated so close to home.
Good foundation for your priesthood.
Absolutely.
I think. Deacon Plessier, how about you? Where did you attend seminary?
I also attended seminary at St. Joseph Seminary College and Notre Dame Seminary. And I would speak to the same thing. I'm just very grateful for the fraternity that I experienced at Notre Dame and at St. Joseph Seminary, of course. Just knowing that I've established lifelong priest friends, and I'll have a support wherever I go in the state. You know, it's such a great blessing. And the spiritual paternity of Father Wayner and Father Gregory, the rectors of those two seminaries, for me, I thought was unparalleled. You know, just simply amazing. And the education there, I could talk about this for a long time because it's a good time. It's a good thing, you know. But yeah, I'm just incredibly grateful for my seminary experience.
And Deacon Whitehead, what about you?
So I was an oddball, and I went to, well, I wasn't originally the oddball. I went to St. Joseph's Seminary in Covington at first, and for graduate school I went to Mount St. Mary's in Maryland.
Yes.
Beautiful place.
It is.
Absolutely loved it. And it was, to be honest, hard to say goodbye. So it's a good thing that Lafayette is so great, because that was the only reason I was willing to come back. But really, seminary is just a wonderful place. They both touched on the priestly fraternity that you have with your brother seminarians, and that is incredible, that experience. One thing I tell people about the life at seminary, the daily life, really, it's truly a blessing, because what we do, we pray, we learn, we recreate, and we serve. And like, it's a life it's simplified so that you can do those four things so well, and together as brothers we're all growing closer to God and closer to each other. So it's a unique experience that many people in normal life just don't have the opportunity for that, and so for that I'm truly grateful.
It's interesting to hear, because a lot of us lay Catholics often wonder, you know, what is a typical day like for a seminarian? So that's interesting to hear. It's a wonderfully balanced foundation.
Truly.
It sounds like that all of you have received.
Truly.
Well, Father Bordelon, we don't want you to feel left out, so we're going to bring you into the discussion now. As we've said, you've had a chance to get to know these amazing young men very well over the last 7 years. What particular talents and gifts do they bring as a class and individually to the Diocese of Lafayette?
All 7 are very different individuals, and you'll hear that come through. Their personalities are very different. But I think what they really share is an eagerness to engage people, to serve. They bring energy, they bring excellence, they bring good training, and some of them bring some life experience working out in the business world, in nursing, insurance business, other different things, banking. And some of the guys have simply been in school, you know. They're a bit on the younger side. That's okay too. All right. Like me, right? like me, right? Hey, I was 26. I never had a real job. So, but I think those are the real things they bring to the priesthood: that energy, that eagerness, that desire to engage in the new evangelization that the last 3 popes have been calling the church to embrace.
One thing on a personal note that I've noticed from all 7 of your Kevin 7
Yeah.
is there, in addition to that energy and enthusiasm, there's also a tremendous joyful spirit
Right.
that they all share, and I attribute a lot of that to you as their spiritual guide for part of the journey. So we're really excited to have all of you. Let's move on to the next question, and Deacon Stephen, we'll start with you. This is something that lay Catholics are always really interested to hear when ordinations come up, and that's, who have you chosen to vest you, and why did you make that choice?
Well, for me, the whole having a brother thing made it quite easy.
can
And so I chose my brother.
You would have been in trouble.
Right. I think that's probably more why, you know, why not have him vest me? I mean, but more than that, I mean, we're just very close. He's always been there to, bounce different ideas off of, or struggles or joys, of the priestly life. And yeah, it was just so, it was just so common sense for him to vest me. It was like, of course I would have him vest me.
Most definitely. Now, Father Harold Trahan didn't get upset that you didn't choose
I don't think so. I mean, I didn't ask, but I don't think so. I don't want to know.
We won't talk about it. Deacon, how about you?
Actually, he's in the room. Father B. Father Bourlon. I've asked him to vest me. Yeah, I mean, he, when I applied to seminary, he was the one I spoke with, and he's walked with me through the whole process. There was even a time that I was going through a hard time in seminary and even considered leaving, and I had a serious conversation with him about it, and that conversation was a game changer. It really helped. So, and through the years we just developed a friendship, and I look up to him, and I'm inspired by his priesthood, so. All right.
Also, definitely a good choice, both of you. And Deacon, how about you?
I'll be having Father Andre Mecherjean. So he's my pastor at Our Lady of Lourdes now. And for me, it was just important. He was the one I would always come home to on holidays, to work in the parish and minister. So just those conversations in the sacristy or over lunch, just catching up with, how's formation going, how's life in the parish going. So he was my most regular contact, and to me, it's just special to have, the priest who is your pastor to kind of welcome you into the fraternity first, and to put the priestly vestments on you. So that's why I chose Father Mecherjean.
Definitely three very, very good choices. Now, Father Bourlon, how do you feel about having this responsibility of vesting Deacon Kyle?
It really is a great honor. I've had the opportunity for a couple of other newly ordained priests, and that's as good as it gets, really. It's fantastic.
Most definitely.
Icing on the cake for this weekend.
Definitely. Let's see. Now, this is another thing that all of us are always very excited to hear the story behind it. Deacon, what is the story behind the chalice and the paten that you have chosen and that you'll be using, as we understand, for the rest of your life?
Sure. Yeah, let's see. I purchased my chalice. Actually, my parents bought it for me. And they purchased it online from a company out of England. And a friend of mine, Deacon East, Sal East, he was just recently ordained for the diocese. He actually found it online and showed me a picture of it. And I made a very quick decision. I just right away, yeah, that's really beautiful. There's some fleur-de-lis on it, and I thought, wow, it's French, or it has a little, connection there. But it's actually an antique English chalice from 1910. So
wow.
It was used, and then it's now been refurbished. And interestingly enough, whenever I inquired about it, I emailed the owner of the company. Someone else was already interested, and so he said, I'm sorry, can't have it. So I looked somewhere else, almost bought a different chalice that I didn't really like very much, and literally like the morning that I was going to enter the information from my credit card, I got an email right before from the owner saying, okay, it's back. So if you're still interested, and absolutely, it was half the price too. and it looked better. So it was just all around.
Silver lining. It was meant to be.
It was.
Deacon, how about you?
Well, we had planned in Christmas to go to New York as a family. That was going to be our big Christmas vacation, all of us together. And so I knew at the time through other seminarians that Adrian Hamers up there is a company that designs and sells religious vessels and articles, and especially chalices. And so speaking with Mom and Dad, I was like, well, let's plan a trip over there. We'll leave from Grand Central and take the train up to Larchmont and get out and just have a look, see what we can find. And when you go in there, it's like the Cave of Wonders. I mean, I've never seen so many chalices in my life.
I bet that was a sight.
Yeah, then they give you gloves and say, good luck. You have to, how do you decide from 200 chalices? My mom compared it to, Harry Potter, how do you choose a wand? Is this one, you choose this one? And so putting all of them out there, it was really interesting to see what me, my mom, and my dad, thought was the one, so to speak. And so I'll put them out there. But the one that we eventually chose was one that was never one of our first picks, but we kept going back to it and going back to it, go back to it. So eventually we all decided together, and just the pieces on it just kind of clicked for us. I mean, it has my father's birthstones in it for January, and just the text on it, and there's the Holy Family in the bottom, and so I mean, and then of course the price was very good. So we said, well, that just sealed the deal.
Yeah.
And then on the bottom of it, we had it hand inscribed. Because of my great grandparents who were so firm in the faith, we had it in memoriam dedicated to them, because really our Catholic faith comes through them. So every time I celebrate the Mass with it, I'll have them in mind. And of course, that's one of the few things a priest has that's his own, is his chalice. Mm-hmm. So there is a plan to keep it in the family for a number of years, so that if the next vocation comes from our family, they'll have, the family chalice with which to encourage that vocation.
That's wonderful to hear. Wonderful. How about you, Deacon Plessia?
So for me, I had heard about guys like Deacon Corey Laverne going up to New York around Christmas break and going to Adrian Hammers. And so I thought I would just circumvent the process and look online. And so I went on Adrian Hammers' website, and while they have a magnificent catalog of chalices, for whatever reason you can't zoom in on the pictures of their chalices. So I was scrolling through, and I decided, well, I've heard eBay has stuff. So I looked on eBay.
It's not the first time we've heard that.
It's not the first time I've heard that, but I have. So I looked on eBay and I found a chalice, and I was amazed. I was like, if I couldn't think of a better chalice. And so I called around. My parents really sketched out about buying a chalice off of eBay. We had found out that the people selling it on eBay were at the same address as Adrian Hammers was, only to find out that Adrian Hammers will sometimes sell stuff off of eBay. So we ended up buying it through Adrian Hammers anyway, but however, the price was a little high, we had thought at the time. But I just remember looking at it. I felt like the chalice chose me, like it was everything that. All right, just sober. It's everything that for me was just amazing about the Mass. For the whole event of Christ's life. I mean, He's present every time that we celebrate the Mass, and just looking at it was like this is like the teaching of the Catholic Church on what the Mass is right here into a piece of beautiful metal, right here in this chalice. So we got it in. They said we could return it, if we wanted to, free of charge. But once we got it in, we're like, well, there's no way we're sending this back, So
it did find you.
Yeah, it did. It found me at Lafayette, Louisiana. So, and so my mom put her wedding band underneath it, and we had it inscribed. And so just to remember my parents' union, that bore two priests, every time I celebrate.
It's wonderful. The Harry Potter analogy is not far off. The chalice chooses you.
This is the ordinary.
Well, we're just about out of time. We want to thank all three of you for joining us. And as Father Bourlaw mentioned a little earlier, our next edition of Catholics Today will be an interview with their four about-to-be brother priests, so please join us for that. In the meantime, I'm Blue Rolfes for Catholics Today. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you soon.